This 3 years ago when the guy tried to open the juice bar in Manly. Why wasn't our city council holding a special meeting or something saying, hey, you know what, we don't want this in our town? Because if you guys would have been proactive about it then 3 years ago, this wouldn't even be an issue.
We probably are guilty of thinking it would never happen to us, Kendra.
Yeah.
That's all I can tell you there.
And now my other question is back to the attorney. So with this new ordinance, he will no longer be able to run that establishment? Because if that's the case, everybody's answers here is clear. Because we don't want him here. So if you're saying that this new ordinance is going to shut him down, we are all thumbs up. Is that what you're saying? Yes or no?
It's not a yes or no question.
So you're saying that there's loopholes and this guy will be able to sneak through them?
I'm saying it's not a yes or no question. That's probably where we'll have to leave it for now.
Oh yeah, go on.
Well, we got rights.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, that's absolutely.
I just want to say that I kind of agree with what she says, but I also trust the city and the police officers and our lawyers to be working toward a solution for this. And if we can have a little patience, hopefully this will resolve within a short time. Because nobody wants this. So I'm just trying to have a little faith in you guys.
I think every one of us share responsibility in never thinking it was going to happen to us. I don't think this is strictly a council thing. I've been extremely concerned about this issue and how it can affect my community and my family and children and grandchildren. At the same time, I was aware of this happening in other small towns around us over the last several years. And I honestly never did, I mean, I was horrified, and God knows I didn't want that in my backyard, but I really never thought about that possibility. So I think we're all in the same boat, and we are in this together. So it isn't just a council thing, and, I share responsibility on that. So.
How long does it take to pass this ordinance? How is it going to take? 2 months, 3 months? Do we have to do so many readings for each town?
Tonight
It will be passed.
Well, once we get through.
My next thing is, how long did it take the council to draw this up, or the ordinance of having this?
We had to go to our attorneys to get that put together. The wording, it takes time.
So it took 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month?
Yeah, it takes time.
Because
it has to be done, and you can't just carte blanche tell a person he can't have a business here. You have to go through the motions and get everything done right. And this ordinance is no way designed to single out any single business. All right, you gotta understand that. What it's designed is to maintain what we consider is what the city wants. All right. There are other ways to take care of nuisances or problems in town, which we'll do, but you can't, like Brian says, everybody has constitutional rights. You can't just trample them. You gotta do things the way they gotta be done.
And I've been on the council, I believe, about 5-6 years. I've lived in town since 2002. I've spent quite a bit of time looking into this, and I want to just reflect on kind of where this type of business sits constitutionally. Everyone in this room has constitutional rights, and although I'm not certainly an attorney, I have read about this particular type of establishment, and they do have rights. They have rights to set up a business in accordance with the rules that are on the books, and we don't have both of these rules on the books yet. And so there are rights of all individuals that afford that. There have been communities across this country who've tried to address this issue, and it's worked its way all the way to the Supreme Court, and communities such as ours have lost. So the direction that a lot of communities take is the one that we're taking now. and that is trying to address this based on zoning. Now, as long as I've got the floor, I'm going to go ahead and point out a few other things. The people who own those businesses have constitutional rights, and so do you. We all do. And so I just want to point out a few things, and I believe it's okay that I point this out now. But sexually oriented businesses bring along with them a lot of things to consider. Again, reading some of the scientific research that has been done based on requests from the United States Supreme Court that basically said you can't just say that business such as this is going to increase crime rates. No, somebody put some science to it and started, two gentlemen out of Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky was the town where they looked at this very closely. And in Louisville, Kentucky, they researched this and determined that within 500 feet of these businesses, there is a 12.5% increase in crime rates. Okay, 12.5 times. It's that much higher. 12.5 times higher than areas outside 500 feet. Areas within 1,000 feet, that number is down to 8.3 times the normal rate of crime. So I'm pointing this out because I want to.
Yeah, on your map, are you talking about the dark purple? Is that the west or yellow?
I'm talking the light purple.
Okay, so now there's light pink in town.
Correct.
So then
Correct.
that's a possible.
The thing is, so according to the setback requirements, we're talking 300 foot. 300, it cannot be within 300 foot of like a single family, multi-family home. And that's what's looked at when we were looking at it. Could it establish in it? We do have homes down in that area. So this particular light pink area would
not be.
No, that's where we looked closely at how that would affect. This is
The only
about
area.
the area, yes.
I do have one other question, that if there's going to be increased potential for need of law enforcement or cleanup or whatever, or if there's a loss of property values in other ways, then if there's an increased need for law enforcement, paying of overtime, extra officer, whatever, then you know the federal government and state governments have looked at different sin taxes that they've imposed. Like tobacco would be a prime example as a sin tax. Wouldn't it be a potential thing for you good folks to at least think about, that there could be some sort of a sin tax applied to help recuperate the needs of the community for the extra law enforcement to clean up the loss of property tax value of those surrounding establishments, and the loss of value, of course, to their business, which you can't recuperate that, but if there could be not only upon the operator of the business, but there's also the potential property tax-wise, perhaps, on the owner of the structure itself who is renting or leasing this, because he's obviously deriving income out of it with no potential increased cost to him that you or the taxpayers in the city are having to bear. So that may be another route for you folks to consider.
I'll address that, and just from what I've studied, and that's a different ordinance, all right? It's a nuisance ordinance, and you guys probably are aware that Mesa City has one that if you have a certain property that gets too much action or too much issues there, that there's recompense for that. And I think that's a different issue than what we're discussing right now. And I really don't want to show my hand, but I'm just saying there's other ways of going about handling these things.
Sure. I guess I was just throwing it out there for potential.
Now, I've heard that Rockford and Rudd don't have one either, but they're working like.
Oh, they're all talking. They're all talking.
If I can, I just want to come back to what Kendra said, because I take ownership for the whole town. I feel like I've let you down because as a council member, these kinds of things should have been monitored. I can't fix it. I can't go back in time, obviously, but what I have been doing is I've reached out to the Iowa League of Cities. I've also reached out to the Iowa State Association of Counties, some of my other colleagues around the state, because if I can do one thing, if I can keep other towns from having to go through what we're now having to do, then I will feel good about that, and I'm going to continue to work that angle. Again, I've gotten responses from both of those agencies telling them to reach out because, you know, there's small towns that have no zoning. I believe some friends of ours from Corwick are here tonight. And it's not easy to put these programs in place. To write ordinances doesn't happen overnight. And this issue, again, is a very, it's a very tested rule. Again, it's run all the way to the Supreme Court. So when you write rules like this, it does take a little time, so you make sure you dot your I's and you cross your T's. And so, again, that issue takes time. And I know I watched some people in the zoning meeting walk out of here kind of upset because nothing happened very quickly or really without explanation. But all of this has got a process. And unfortunately, government is just a bit slow. I mean, that's just the way we are. And so I'm going to do everything I can from here on out. There's three-pronged approach. Just a minute, Renee, and then George can call on you. but to me, there's a three-pronged approach. We're working with Pritchard's to work on the legality side of things, okay? And we'll just know that we're going to be working with Pritchard's to address the concerns that come up around our town. Again, I feel obligated that that's what the council needs to be doing. Of course, you know, Jesse and Chuck have been doing great work. I want to recognize them and thank them for the time that they're putting into this, because you're right. The amount of time that our law enforcement is having to work more in our community is substantial, and I want to reflect on the fact that there's
just renting this building from Kevin. Can you put to rest the rumor that the city council is looking at buying that building to just get him out, evict him out?
It's never been discussed or on any agenda. So I can put the rest of that.
Would that be an option that the city buy that building?
I can't answer that. It's not been brought up inside that establishment during business hours. Yes.
That's pretty easy.
Answer check.
I'm thinking, you know, if we've got an ordinance in Mason City, a nuisance ordinance that we've been talking about here. Maybe why don't you have that lawyer over here spend a couple hours here tonight after we're done and get that thing drawn up and get it going?
I think that's a good point, Dean, and I think his point to the group is we'll be back here again talking more about next steps. So as I mentioned, I still see this as a three-pronged approach. We've got the legality side of this. The council's going to be involved in that. We've got the law enforcement side of this. We've got y'all. It's the community. It's the third piece. So, point taken. We'll be working.
I just want to say I'm thrilled to hear what I'm sensing is the community on your part for the zoning and the legal structure thing. I'm thrilled. I didn't know it was going to be this happy a meeting. I'm just curious what the chances are if somebody wanted to, say, peacefully assemble on the street, on that side of the street. How likely are we to get in any trouble with you?
You could be in front of my studio and I give you all or in front of I'll use my bathroom.
That's important. I believe we have a constitutional right to assemble, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think it's important if we as a community want to do that, it needs to be done peacefully, it needs to be done quietly, but we have rights, again, so.
You have as much rights as they have. Put it that way.
I do have one question, and this is probably in the ordinance, but is there something, I know he's not a strip club per se, he's a performing arts theater. However, his sign says otherwise, or shows otherwise. When this ordinance goes into effect, is there something that specifically states, you know, like naked women on your sign? So I have to explain my 8-year-old why.
Quite honestly, that sign is probably no different than what I see on the mud flaps of half the trucks that drive around town. So I doubt very highly that could be considered offensive. But if it was offensive, yeah, I think there's
it's offensive. Yes. For parents with children, that's offensive.
Yeah, I know. I'm not disagreeing with you.
I haven't driven down Main Street since the establishment opened. I have taken different routes because I refuse to drive my kids by there.
Well, I just happened to notice it because we were pumping gas and she
To answer your
asked.
question, though, there is in the
Okay.
ordinance, there is what deals with signs and
Okay.
everything else. I read it, and there's
No.
old commercials.
You gotta be in business one day to be grandfathered in, or what?
I can't answer that.
Well, I want an answer.
Sorry.
Nobody here knows
Well,
that.
Gerald, you know, the city's working on a lot of things.
I mean, I just
And
asked the
a lot of
question, if your
things, if we
grandfathered
spill the
in.
beans now would ruin it for us in the future.
Well, I think you answered it, or asked this question earlier. It's a case-by-case determination, depends on how long they've been in the business, what type of investment and things like that. There's a lot of factors, and it's a case-by-case determination. So that it's like the lady that back here wanted a yes or no question, or answer. I can't give you a yes or no question. I think that's why people hate lawyers. we can't necessarily give you a yes or no answer, but.
It took 3.5 months of everybody working together. There wasn't one silver bullet. It took a lot of pieces to ultimately make things work out, but you'll get there. I'm sure you will, especially looking at you guys. You're a great group. And I think a number of us are going to meet somewhere, maybe a church or something afterwards, and share some of the things that we did and what worked and what didn't.
Thank you. And the second thing is just don't panic. Things have a way to take care of themselves. If we panic, we get things out of order, things don't work right, but just let's work through the system. I tell you, we'll get her done.
Need a motion in a second?
Don't make that motion.